Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I will welcome you today to the ISTA webinar on standard proficiency testing, processes and the purpose of it. And I've got a lot of attendees here from the ISTA Secretariat. We have Branislava Opra, who is technically responsible and also in the end of receiving the results, and together with the leaders of the proficiency test, and also Jean-Louis Lafont, who's here as chair of the statistics committee of ISTA, to look over the results and evaluate them. We have here the two chairs of the technical committee for proficiency testing, which is Thierry Demillier from Jabez and Sharon Davidson from the United States. And I'm very happy to be with Sharon on the same time zone today, as I'm going later to be part of the American CTA Chicago. This webinar will be broadcast in Chicago. It's available on the ISTA YouTube channel, and we would like to start with a few questions to the panelists, and afterwards you as attendees are able to go into the question and answer section and put some questions up in this area, and we will try to answer your questions. Yeah, welcome to all of you here as a panelist. My first question, of course, is an easy one and very straightforward. What do we understand under a standard proficiency test? Maybe Didier, you could answer on that.
Yes, of course. Hello, everybody. I'm glad to see, not to see you, but to speak to you today. So, standard proficiency test is a formal comparative test system organized by ISTA to evaluate seed testing proficiency of laboratories. The Proficiency Test Committee was created in 2003 from the former Referee Test Committee. The proficiency evaluation system of laboratories was settled by Doug Ashton, who was the first chair of the Proficiency Test Committee. From 2004 to 2017, Günther Müller chaired the PTC and collaborated closely with Martina Roche and Branislava Opra, Branca, from the ISTA Secretariat. This evaluation system becomes a tool to evaluate and compare laboratories. Standard proficiency tests mean that most common tests in seed testing laboratories are evaluated under PTC control. This includes purity, other seed determination, germination, moisture content, and tetrazolium test, and more recently, vigor and thousand seed white have been added to the test. In addition, some PTs include also an exercise on completion of an ISTA orange certificate. 3 rounds per year are shipped to laboratories, normally in April, August, and December. And each round consists to test 1 or 2 species, and there are always 3 samples to be tested per species. PTC member and standard PTs coordinators are the organizing, analytical, and reporting forces of the standard PTs. Information on standard PTs, including the program and the procedure, is published at the ISTA website in What Do We Do Proficiency Test web page.
Yeah, thank you for that information. But then, what is the aim and the purpose of this standard proficiency test?
Oh, this is very important. The proficiency test contributes strongly to the uniformity and the proficiency of seed testing worldwide. The first aim is a contribution to ISTA accreditation of laboratories. The ISTA accreditation and technical department check that accredited laboratories or laboratories which would like to become ISTA accredited meet the minimum performance to maintain their accreditation or to candidate for accreditation. The second aim is more wide. ISTA PT program give an opportunity to accredited and also non-accredited laboratories to compare their knowledge and skills to other seed testing laboratories. The aim is also to identify the training needs of laboratories for certain testing methods like seed identification in other seed determination analysis. The outcome of the PT procedure gives also an indication of whether some ISTA method needs to be reevaluated or improved.
Yeah. That means a lot of planning, probably, what you're telling us. How do you plan these ISTA proficiency testing and program?
Yes, planification is a big topic. And for that, each 3 years before the ISTA Congress, the committee discusses with the accreditation and technical department and with the technical committee with which species and tests shall be included in the program for the next 3 years period. The program plan is then elaborated and validated during the Congress. Currently, we are working on the program plan for the period 2023 to 2025. The PT plan is balanced between three criteria. First criteria is the representation of the species diversity and seed sizes. Accreditation and technical department with technical committees had classified the species in 8 crop groups, and we managed to have 1 or 2 species for each crop group in the 3 years program. The second criteria is application of a predefined frequency of PTs for each test. For example, for purity, OSD, and germination, there are 2 tests per year. And for vigor or 1000 seed white, there are only 2 tests in 3 years. The first criteria is the PT leaders and the PT leaders lab expertise for the particular species and test. The PT leader laboratory must be ISTA accredited for sampling and for the test and species that will be prepared in the concerned PT round. Taking account of all these 3 criteria, the PTC members volunteer and agree on who will be leader for each PT round. Compromises have to be made sometime because no PTC member has the expertise on a particular species. And we have also the problem when seed lot of certain species are rare, particularly for tree or flower species. And when also the problem when custom or phytosanitary constraints are too strong. In such cases, we have then to change to the expected species.
That sounds very lot of work. Maybe Sharon, as a vice chair, a question to you as well. How is the standard proficiency test prepared then?
Well, so we have an internal standard operating procedure that we follow, and it's very detailed and it's step by step. And, you know, of course, after each PT, we learn something. So we do, this is a living document and it can be updated frequently. You usually start with a year in advance to find your lots that you want to use. And to select these lots, you're looking for good field history, uniformity within the seed lot, and hopefully no phyto issues because these are trying to be sent around the world. The lots are pre-tested by the leader and then the chair also. And we're inspecting for pests and other insects or other seeds that would be too detrimental to send around the world. If we find anything, then we choose another lot and go through this whole process again. And let's say there's 200 participants. We need to prepare about 240 samples. We need 10 for QA purposes after to keep for storage. We need 10 for heterogeneity tests. We need extras if something happens in shipping and Bronca has to replace something. And we need extra if there needs to be follow-up afterwards in case of bad performance. This can be very time-consuming. especially if we have something like a germ and a moisture test asked for, because you're preparing the germ and also a duplicate in a moisture-proof packaging. So that takes up a lot of extra time to do that. Most time is taken to prepare the other seed determination, because the leader and the chair have to agree on the seeds to be used, and then those seeds are heat treated and then checked by TZ to make sure that there is no viability, because that's the last thing we want to do is send around some viable bad things. And then this can take, you know, in the case of small seeds, this can take hours and hours, up to 200 hours. And then the heterogeneity testing is done on 10 random samples, and then the other seeds are added to the packages for the other seed determination. And then finally, it can be sent out around the world.
Sending out around the world, that's a good keyword, and I think that is where you are getting involved, Branka. How do you ship the samples?
Exactly, well, sending around the world, this is a big challenge, big topic for us. So we receive the samples in a big box, one or more boxes, from the PT leaders, let's say from Shannon Laboratory. So the samples are already prepared in small kind of bags. Then this big parcel is accompanied with related phytosanitary documentation that the Swiss side, Swiss custom, can receive it and let it through, of course. So that means ISTA Secretariat also has an import permit for the proficiency test samples. Then within the Secretariat, we open the big box and we take the small samples, let's say sample number 1, lot 1, lot 2, lot 3, and we pack them in a smaller carton boxes with protective material. The instruction letter is included in each box, plus the instruction letter is also posted at the ISTA website. So now when we close the box, if the participating laboratory required certain documentation to accompany the parcel, it is attached. Let's say a commercial invoice or phytosanitary certificate or import permit or any special label that has to be put on the parcel, let's say deviating shipping address. So we respect the wishes or requests from the customers, which are our laboratories, and then we register the samples. That means in the Swiss postal system, we normally use priority post. Only last time we tried to use the urgent post, which caused us even more problems than the priority post. The aim of registering the samples is actually to have a particular number which each participant can trace on the link provided by us for the Swiss online tracing portal. So each participant will receive an email with this particular number for tracing and the link to the portal for tracing, as well as instruction for how to perform, well, what is required to perform in the proficiency test, plus what is the deadline for shipping the results, plus the special reporting forms, which are PDF forms for reporting the results only using these forms. So the samples are shipped 3 times per year. Targeted deadlines for shipping the samples from the ISTA Secretariat are the 1st of April and the 1st of August and the 1st of December. We always try to ship it a little bit earlier to allow participants as much time as possible, not only the 3 months as, so to say, as estimated time for receiving and testing the samples. Now, in the email that we communicate to participants when samples are shipped, we also kindly ask participants to inform us every time when they do not receive the samples within 3 weeks, let's say. It's very important that they can trace the parcel. Plus, we ask them to initiate the test as soon as they receive the samples within the 3 weeks at the longest time from the receipt of the sample, so not to wait to the final moment.
Are there any other challenges you would like to let us know about shipping the samples? Because I know it's always a great moment inside the Secretariat, the 2 weeks of shipping the samples, because it's not a day's job what we're doing. Yes,
when we receive 200 samples and 200 parcels around ISTA Secretariat, it is of course a lot of work and effort. Yeah, apart from the COVID-19 as a general challenge for everyone on our side as well as on the participant side, I would say that the postal system generally changed. Switzerland used to have certain contracts with, let's say, EU countries on the mutual acceptance of the seed transmission from country to country, and that is no longer the case. From 1st of July, this contract between Switzerland and EU countries is kind of discontinued, so it might be that the postal system actually asks certain EU countries to pay certain fee to admitting the samples within the laboratory. This is something we cannot influence. Unfortunately, this is mutual. The same will happen when the samples are shipped from EU to Switzerland. Another big challenge which we always try to address, but it's never so easy, and each proficiency test gives new challenges. These are the customs and phytosanitary requirements. Most of the customs would say, okay, it is seed. So it doesn't matter for them if the seed is of very small quantity, let's say 4 grams for the ISTA proficiency test. It is still a seed, and they are not really aware of our detailed procedure of preparation and how carefully we take care of it, that there is no insect, that there is no harm, other seed added, that even other seed is devaluated, meaning it will not germinate. It's kind of killed by heat treatment, even if we say it's non-GMO origin. So the customs still do not permit seed to come to the country without proper import permit or the phytosanitary certificate issued by Swiss side. So now it is not ISTA Secretariat who is the body issuing phytosanitary certificate. It is Swiss Phytosanitary Office. That means from the participant who needs this document, we have to receive certain import permit saying why they need phytosanitary certificate, who is the authority requiring this phytosanitary certificate, what is the validation date of that import permit. Then we apply each participant to the Swiss Phytosanitary Office. They normally issue the document without problem. It has its certain costs, but this document is valid only for 2 weeks. So now what the challenge is that sometimes laboratories are not aware of these requirements, which are their national requirements. They have to be respected. So they informed us they need this documentation only when the samples are already shipped. So this is too late, unfortunately, and we cannot do much about that situation. So what we require is the proper on-time information almost 1 year ahead of the proficiency test. The PT program plan will help laboratories to see what are the species coming in the future, that they can on time contact their customs and on time find out what are the requirements. Nevertheless, despite of all these requirements and a lot of documentation that we can include, the customs sometimes open the parcel, take the sample out, destroy the parcel, do not deliver the seed, or even they say for safe delivery, despite the documentation, they need an extra sample. So this is quite a frequent question. Extra sample, because we have only 20 extra samples for replacement per proficiency test. So therefore, it's not possible to replace each time the sample, and it's not possible each time to include 1 extra sample for a participant. So then we say, okay, better combine together the efforts. Maybe laboratories who normally have a problem to receive the samples can say to receive or agree to receive the sample at one particular laboratory, and that laboratory will commit to distribute the samples further. It's not always easy, it functions for some countries, but for some other countries, it's maybe a solution to think of.
Yeah, so what you tell us is that the laboratory should think early enough if they are not forced to participate, but voluntarily participating, to let us know which proficiency tests they would like to participate in, and all laboratories should look at the documentation needed to import into their country. I know that we have sometimes problems also to import into countries generally, and here we try to find solutions with the local governments to get these samples cleared out of customs. But also from my side, and maybe also from your side, Branka, there's a great thank you to the Swiss authorities who are really helping us with these certificates and are well aware of the background of these samples. We met with them several times in the past, and they're really helpful. And that is also good to see that when it is understood what is behind this. And Switzerland is a member of ISTA as well, and has got an accredited laboratory. So that is very important that the authorities understand what we are talking about here. Yeah. Now that is about shipment and all these things. By the way, if you have any questions, feel free to go into the question and answer box and put your questions there. I would like now to focus a little bit on the area of results processing and calculation. Maybe, Branka, you can tell us something about that as well, because I think that the results will be received by the Secretariat.
Yes, that is correct. Since the Secretariat is sending the special PDF forms that laboratories complete and send them back by email to us, we simply import this data into the ISTA database for calculation. The program inside is actually made by, or statistically decided by the Statistics Committee, and we have Jean-Louis on board here, which is very good if there are any specific statistic question about it. So the statistical program is automated, it is not manual. The only result that we have to type in are the other seed determination results, because the programming of importing is quite challenging. And anyway, all the programs are done within the database by an expert, by an IT expert, so programmer in this field. So I'm just pressing some buttons there in the database. I don't have any particular direct influence on any calculation that comes out from the database, but it is several times verified to be correct. Now, when the deadline for reporting the results come, what we do, we publish the heterogeneity results at the website. These results are not the expected results. So these are results of 10 randomly taken samples and tested during the preparation of the seed lots. These results only picture what is the quality, what was the quality of the seed lots before shipping them to the participant, before even granting the seed lots to be used for the proficiency test purpose. But they're very good orientation. For example, other seed which is spiked in the samples, they will be listed, and also the images of the other seed will be posted at the website as part of the heterogeneity results. So the laboratories can have quite good orientation and information what they could expect from the results. When we do the first calculation, we issue so-called preliminary results. These are individual results of each participant, meaning the certain ABC rating is assigned according to their Z-score in comparison with all other accredited laboratories for that particular combination of the crop group and the test. Within 1 month's time that we give to laboratories to check these results, to verify, to study them, to understand them, we will issue then the final results. Final results are basically not much different from the preliminary results, but they have an addition. An addition is so-called overall rating. So there will be a list of all proficiency test rounds, or very many of them, that laboratories participated in, let's say, a couple of last years. Plus, there will be a graphical presentation of the performance of the laboratories in terms of possible trends. So whether the laboratory constantly overestimate or underestimate in comparison with other ISTA accredited laboratory, that is very interesting information for especially accredited laboratory to look at these possible trends. At the end of the PT round, we are also publishing, and that's recently introduced statistic. It is about a summary report. Summary report, it is a very nice picture, overall information about the proficiency test. It will give information on how the accredited laboratories in general compared versus non-accredited laboratories. And also, let's say, what are the methods used for germination, for tetrazoleum test, and so on. So if there would be a choice in these rules of several methods, all participants, also the Proficiency Test Committee and also other committees involved, let's say germination, other seed determination committee, tetrazoleum, would have a proper information to see what are the, so to say, preferred method chosen by most of the laboratories during the proficiency test.
Yeah, I think this is a very nice tool, and it's something which shows to the outside that these proficiency tests, which need to be done by the accredited participants, show that they have always much better ratings than the non-accredited laboratories. So this means to me that there is a kind of uniformity in seed testing, which is proven by these type of proficiency tests to the outside, because it is much closer for the accredited laboratories than it is with non-accredited laboratories. So it's a good tool for the outside also to see how serious ISTA is taking this part of uniformity in seed testing, and that the proficiency tests play a major role in this area. Now, that brings us to the rating of the proficiency tests. How are they rated, Didier?
So, according to rating, result for each species, for each test, and for each laboratory is rated as A, B, C, or BMP. BMP means below minimum performance. For all tests except OSD, rating is obtained by calculating the Z-score. For each test, the result of each laboratory, each individual result is compared to the average of accredited laboratories, and this difference is divided by the standard deviation. The mean and standard deviation values are calculated only on accredited laboratories results and after removal of outlier value with a specific statistical test. The advantage of the Z-score is to take into account the overall variability of each PT. And for each test, the sum of absolute values of the 3 Z-scores corresponding to the 3 samples is, so this sum is compared to a threshold grid, allowing to classify the laboratories as A, B, C, or BMP. Evaluation of OSD test is more specific. It relates to the retrieval rate. So it is evaluated whether the participant found all the seeds that were spiked in the sample and whether they identified them correctly. With the ABC system, it is easy to conclude that A and B rating are suitable and C and BMP are not suitable. For each accredited laboratory, an overall rating is also performed by adding the ratings of the last 6 mandatory PTs. And the sum of those ratings is compared to another evaluation threshold grids, allowing also to have an overall rating of laboratories, also as A, B, C, or BMP. As already explained by Branka, we have an automatic process. Calculations and ratings are automatically done in the ISTA database. Explanation of how to read, to interpret results and graphical results, as well as calculation details, are described in the procedure ISTA Standard Proficiency Test, which is published at the ISTA website.
Thank you, Didier. We heard about that. That the PT is an essential part of the accreditation system. So I assume that if there are non-favorable results, labs have to act and to do something. Sharon, maybe you can explain that to us. How do labs have to act on non-favorable results on the PT?
Yes, so participants who are ISTA accredited and obtain a C or a BMP rating are requested to take immediate corrective action and to improve their performance. For accredited participants, it's very important to know that the in-round ratings accumulate into an overall rating, and with the overall rating is if it becomes a BMP, the laboratory gets suspension for that particular test and for related tests. For example, if they do poor performance in the other seed determination, it can influence the laboratory's accreditation for purity as well. But you know, it happens. Non-favorable, sometimes you get a C or a BMP, and there are a range of actions that the laboratory can take. I mean, You can retest the remaining sample using the same or an alternative method that's in the rules. You can ask for a replacement sample from Bronca and try in case something happened during the mailing process. You can check whether your method was correctly applied. Was there pre-chill used if it was needed? Was the right temperature in your germinators? You know, so check your equipment. Check the substrates. Did you have enough moisture, too much moisture, things like that. Check the interpretation of the ISTA rules by the analysts that conducted the tests, and a whole range of things like that. I have even phoned another lab and asked them, you know, taken a photo of what we had, sent it to them and said, what are we doing wrong? Can you give us any advice? I mean, just anything to help figure it out for you. Once the corrective actions are finalized, all that is sent back to the secretariat, and then maybe a working group or the head of accreditation and the technical department will study them and give you a response back and suggest something else. People usually are a little bit afraid of some of the species that are coming to them because they've never tried them before or tested them before, and so it's always a good advice to read up in the rules how to do those species, maybe request some practice samples from other labs that may test those routinely, and then you can get a feel for what you're going to be doing when that actual PT comes to you. And so those are some of the things that you can do. I believe there's a document online that talks about replying to nonconformities in your PT results. So it's pretty spelled out what you need to do to respond.
Thank you very much to all of you. That is a little bit the end of our session, where we wanted to show the audience how PT samples or the PT rounds are set up. I would invite more people to send questions. I've got a few here, but I always get a question as well if a non-member can participate in the standard proficiency test program. Generally, the proficiency test program is open to all members of ISTA. We have around 250 member laboratories worldwide, out of which 150 are accredited, except numbers varying a little bit, but that is about it. So you can say that also non-accredited are using this PT rounds to look at the quality, and you mentioned that as well, to look at their own quality, compare themselves to other ISTA laboratories. And these are sometimes also laboratories which are looking for accreditation. And we are open for non-members to participate as well when they have a will to become ISTA accredited at a certain stage, but not becoming an ISTA member directly. So yes, you can participate as a non-member as well. There are special fees which are there for participating in the proficiency tests. In the moment for the standard proficiency test, I think it's 3,000 Swiss francs per year for all 3 tests. And any other additional test, if it is, because we don't only have standard PTs, we also have GMO, DNA, and CTAS proficiency test is another 1,000 Swiss franc. So if you look up the membership fee and what you get as other benefits, it may be also beneficial for non-members who are willing to participate, because they have to follow the ISTA rules and they have to follow the recent ISTA rules to become a member of ISTA, because then they get all these benefits of the rules every year and things also for free. Members participate in the proficiency test for free. Yeah, thank you very much for all these advices and explanations. I've got one question which I forwarded by now to Didier. But the question there is how to test in paddy crops. it doesn't mean that we don't have paddy crops in the proficiency testing. We do have, and we do have, I think in a lot of cases, we have rice in the triennium as one of the wheat species. Maybe someone can explain how that is done from a technical point of view. Sharon or Didier?
Yes, not in the current program plan. We didn't put rice in the current program plan, but rice was in the previous one and also in the former previous one. So we had the rice as a proficiency test organized for, if I remember, it was for purity and germination and other seed determination probably. So what was requested was a classical analysis of purity, other seed determination on the size of the purity sample, and germination tests.
Thank you, Branka. Yeah, you want to add something?
Yes, I would like to add that when the laboratory would like to participate in specific species like this rice, we always advise actually that proficiency test is offered for a crop group. So the species selected by a committee actually is one representative of that particular crop group. And if the laboratory is going for ISTA accreditation, accreditation will be granted per whole crop group, not only for particular species. That means that if you're testing cereals, in general, you're not testing on one cereal, you will get accreditation for all range of cereals within that crop group. So therefore, please take a chance and participate in as many proficiency tests as possible to gain this experience.
Okay, thank you for that. I've got another question here from Dot Patterson. She's asking if a lab is accredited in one crop group and wants to be accredited in another group. What should we do if the ISTA office has one PT sample in that group is not enough? Is that enough? Did you get that, Branka? Maybe that's a question for you.
I think that, if I correctly understand, is that it is about extension of the scope to include another crop group, right?
Yeah.
So for the extension of the scope, we have with Head of Accreditation and Technical Department, Dr. Florina Palada, always discussions what is the process behind. So the process is that laboratory will need to make, if there is no proficiency test of ISTA, they will need to make, so to say, comparative test with other two ISTA accredited laboratory for that particular crop group and the methods test they want to extend their scope for. So this statistical and initiation to make comparative tests actually comes from laboratory side. These results have to be evaluated and sent to the ISTA Accreditation and Technical Department. There is a special form to apply for extension of the scope. It is relatively routine process on our side, but of course it includes for the extension a lot of work on laboratory side, not only to organize the tests, but also to have specific procedures written, to have evidence of the staff training, all the evidence to support their inquiry for extending the scope of accreditation.
And maybe there's a related question from Sai Santosh Katuri. They're asking, how do we get information of other crop seed determination while participating in the PT?
Didier?
I think it's on other seed determination. Maybe Didier can answer that. Or
can you repeat the question, please?
How do we get information of other crop seed determination while participating in the proficiency test? So I think it's on other seed, which you mentioned that are, if you do other seed determination, how does the lab get the information that which seed it is? I think afterwards, after the evaluation.
So what is expected, of course, is seed detection and seed identification. So when the lab receives the sample, we don't give him the species in the sample. And so after the PT, we publish a report and also pictures of all the seed that was added to the sample. So it's possible to see the pictures, the images of all the seed that was added, in order to try to find them and to identify them, and to use all these other seeds in seed collection, because as laboratory has the picture, as the seed, they can use those seeds to integrate them in their seed collection to improve their proficiency in seed identification. And sometimes we address to the purity committee the information, of course, of the results, of the general results of the PTs according seed identification, not seed identification, according identification of other seeds, and problems that for some time very low rates of identification from the laboratories. We had several cases in the this last year or in the previous years. Yeah.
I've got two questions here from David Johnston from the US. He's asking, will the ISTA Proficiency Test Program at some point start incorporating the use of images of seed for ID and tetrazolium testing for testing PTs, and images of seedling for germination PTs?
So we have already discussed this point in the past. And the conclusion of the PTC members was that it's better to ask real analysis, because the evaluation of proficiency on analysis is not just evaluation of seedling, evaluation of seeds, but it is the whole process of to obtain, to germinate seeds, to obtain seedling, using the correct methods for germination, for tetrazolium. It's not only a question of seed evaluation, seedling evaluation as normal or abnormal, for example. And so as there are also several kind of method, as also light is not mandatory. So some laboratory can work without light, some other can work with light, so the seedling are not the same with or without light. So giving pictures to those laboratories could create high problems, because the seedlings are not the same, have not the same shape as usual in the laboratories.
So you're looking more to a holistic approach, where you need to go from having really seed samples in your hand, doing the whole evaluation system until the results are there and done how it is normally done inside the laboratory, not just looking at images, which is a nice training tool maybe inside the laboratory to have images of seed for training people on seed ID, on showing how a tetrazolium should look like. But it's not the background of the proficiency test itself, where we look at the holistic approach of a laboratory from receiving a sample to the end result of the, let's say, germination or tetrazolium. Okay.
Yes.
The other question from David is going, does the ISTA PT program use true-false questions or multiple choice questions regarding to various information found in the ISTA rules, in addition to testing actual samples? It goes a little bit in the same direction, I think. Sharon, you would like to answer to that?
No, we don't use any of those. It's a hands-on process, and we're checking the methodology of the lab and the overall. It's not a look it up in the rules and say yes or no.
It's not a test of a person, of a seed technologist, knowledge test. It is more the approach test of the laboratory and how they get to the final result, which have to match and have to show and demonstrate uniformity in seed testing them.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
What else do we have here? There are two questions as well. How non-accredited laboratories benchmark themselves with accredited laboratories and prepare themselves for ISTA PT test? Maybe Branka, that is something for you which you could answer.
Yes, well, I would say relatively easy. Like all participants, they received ratings A, B, C, and I hope not BMP. So A and B, as Didier said, are favorable results. That means you are quite benchmarked with all other ISTA accredited laboratories for that particular combination of the species and crop group and the particular test. If you receive a C or BMP below minimum performance, well, it's clear indication that you still need to work on either application of the ISTA rules or understanding of ISTA rules or checking your substrate, checking your equipment, training your staff members, analysts before receiving this better score, before improving, right? So it is a matter of practice. That's why we also advise that if laboratory is not sure, have quite good experience with certain coming species for the proficiency test, it's very good to start training, exercising in advance. Try to get such seed from another laboratories, even from another country if possible, and train. This is the only way to improve performance.
Yeah, there's another question also from Mohammed Ikram Ulhak. Does ISTA have any demonstration physical visits on QMS for laboratories willing to participate in PT? If not, then why? There are workshops for quality assurance for beginners and advanced. And please follow the ISTA website for one of the next workshops. They can be in physical form, but we also started to do them online now. So look at the ISTA website. There are QA workshops, and I would see this one as a QA workshop for a beginner. And there you will be also introduced in this PT program for laboratories which are looking into accreditation. Steve Jones made a comment that old PT results and images may be very useful in seed ID work. Yes, these images will be there, and you could use them to train your staff. Eric van Egmond is asking a question. Sometime we found more other seed in a PT test than they were added. Is it possible? Is this possible? Are the lots checked for the test?
Yes.
That was a quick answer.
Yes.
Now the long answer from Didier.
We work on a real seed lot, so there is the possibility that the initial lot we have used contain also other seeds, and we spike additional seeds. So of course there could be more seed and species than the species and seeds that were added, and the rating is done only on seed that were added and not on all the seeds for OSD. And for purity, of course, it depends of the percentage of other seed and inert matter and pure seeds. Of course, we rate according to pure seeds, depending, of course, this percentage depends, of course, of the percentages of inert matter and other seeds.
Thank you. Another question here: can PT results lead to changes in ISTA rules?
Yes. Well, I would say yes, because if we find that there is a temperature, say, that doesn't work for everybody, or a substrate or something like that, then we have sent it to a working group, and they have done a research, and things have changed, or proposals have been made and then voted on.
Thank you, Sharon. I think that's a good explanation. I've got a question for Jean-Louis here from Maja Milojevic, and she's asking, can you explain the statistics for 1,000 seed weight?
Oh, it could take a a long time to explain.
Yeah, we have another 10 minutes, Jean-Louis.
Okay, well, it will be short. The only thing I can say very quickly is that it is the same statistics which are used for germination and some other tests. So it's based on what we call the Tattersfield procedure. So Tattersfield was a previous chair of the statistics committee a long time ago. She published a paper in 1979 describing the procedure for computing Z-scores. What is important when we compute Z-scores is to estimate the general mean and the standard deviation, which is summarize the variability of the test results among laboratories. So if I can make a parallel with ISO, this is what we call the reproducibility standard deviation. So it's important to estimate this general mean and this standard deviation, which are key for computing the Z-score. So there is a procedure. So as Didier said, or Branca, I don't remember, but we have a procedure in place to estimate these statistics very well with outlier detection, so eliminating some outliers, not to influence too much the estimates. And so this is the basis for all the ratings for the proficiency test. Well, not for the purity. We have a specific procedure, but it's similar. The key thing is to compute these Z-scores and to compute them accurately, and then Z-score values correspond to a rating. And for TSW, thousand seed weight, it's a similar procedure than the one which is used for the germination. And again, it's a very old procedure that we have reviewed regularly, but it's a robust procedure. It's working well. And so this is what I can say. It's a good procedure.
Thank you, Jean-Louis. And thank you for the short answer, because other things may have been even too much for our brain. And a question here from Seaman Setupati. How do the germination test for the recalcitrant seeds? That is more a technical question, probably. Sharon, you want to answer on that?
I don't know.
We have not organized any PT on recalcitrant seeds.
Okay, that is also answering a question. Santosh Karturi is asking us here how many PTs we have to clear for apply in accreditation and what should be the grades. Branca, that is something for you.
Very easy, only one, and the rating should be an A or a B. But Good. You have to have A and B for all apply for the accreditation. So it might mean that you will not qualify for the accreditation for all the tests that you might wish at the first, but you can keep participating in the proficiency test results, and as soon as you score the A or B ratings in the other tests that you might like to apply for accreditation, that will be taken into consideration.
Another question here which goes into the same direction from Dot, but at a later stage of the accreditation process, is it possible to extend the accreditation to another crop group between two ISTA audits if the PT results are okay? That's a three-letter word, yes.
Yes, again, using the procedure of the application for the extension, communicating with Florina Palada as head of accreditation and technical department. It's a relative routine procedure for us.
Steve Jones' question: to help members improve, will ISTA have workshops online and physical again? The answer here is I could answer to that, because the answer here is clearly yes. We have online workshops ongoing. We started during the pandemic with Q&A workshops, which I mentioned before as a good start for a non-accredited laboratory to join and also learn about PTs, but not only about PTs, about all other things on the QMS system, which are very important when you set up these systems in your laboratory. We are looking into physical workshops again. We have some under planning, one in the Ukraine, which is an ongoing planning here, and others than QA workshops. I can tell you, keep your eyes open. There will be a workshop on CTELs coming up pretty soon, also as an online workshop. So we are going into both, again, online and where it is possible, also physical workshops. And other committees are looking also in the possibility of doing it online, but that is probably in a few cases, as Didi and Sharon mentioned, we are looking at a holistic approach also for the PTs, not that easy to achieve. Maybe an idea for the statistics committee, because if you are doing workshops, they are sometimes also possible, I think, by an online tool. Go to training tool is the tool we are using. So maybe Jean-Louis wants to say a word to that, because you are representing a technical committee which is doing workshops.
So we don't have any workshop planned. It's a workshop plan, but yeah, I mean, if there is interest in learning more about statistical tools, we can organize workshops around that. But it's a long time since we didn't have a workshop in statistics. We had them mainly around GMO testing, connected with the GMO committee. But we are open to any suggestion.
I've got another question here, and I've got 4 or 5 questions. I think we take all the questions we have until now, and then if there are more questions, we would have to pass it on. A question from Brazil, from Miriam Alvisi: how to solve problems that some labs have due to the delay in customs clearance of the seeds and the consequences, the reduction in the seed quality and the result of the test, and maybe also the time to conduct the test, because each test has got a deadline. Branka, you want to give some information on that?
Well, it's a very good question. I do not have an answer. I'm afraid I think that is communication improvement between the particular laboratories and their customs. Of course, ISTA can help with any additional statement, declaration, what ISTA proficiency test is about, what it means, that this is seed of commercial quality, but not with commercial value, that it is nicely prepared and so on. But more than that, we cannot influence the local national authority procedures. So it is really close communication between the laboratory. In this case, for Brazil, talk to the customs. Sorry, Andreas.
Thank you. I got a question here from Nepal. Bimal Cheretri is asking: are you sending PT samples to the laboratory, but you're not looking at, don't know which staff is working on the PTs? Maybe any of competent staff may be testing the PTs. Why not start sending individual PTs to all staff of the laboratory to ensure that all staff of the laboratory are competent? Generally, we have to say that is a responsibility of the laboratory, that staff is getting a good training. And I think, just repeat what Didier and Sharon said before, we are looking at a holistic approach, how a lab is handling these things. And that is why we are sending it to the laboratory. and they should comply with their QMS systems and their training systems and whatever they apply in their laboratory to get the results out in a proper and uniform way and with the right results. Branka, you want to say something as well?
Yes, I would also like to put it in perspective. So some laboratories, they have 3 analysts. Some laboratories, they have 103. So to send a sample to each of the analysts, not only for ISTA, but for anybody. Didier?
Yes, I want to add that when a laboratory issue an orange certificate, it's a certificate from the laboratory and not from an analyst. So what we expect that the laboratory is able to produce correct analysis, whatever the analyst.
Yeah, correct.
That's correct. Another question from Mohamed Ikram ul Haq. How many times a laboratory can participate in PT tests?
As long as you pay your membership fee, there is no there is no restriction on that. You can apply for 1 test per year. You can apply to participate in all the tests that you want, even if you don't have experience. That's actually what we would encourage you to do, because any other seat determination test comes in almost each proficiency test round. So it's not really related to the particular main crop. So just go ahead, participate.
Yeah. A final question here from Didier.
Just to mention that for non-accredited laboratory, it is not mandatory to participate to the proficiency test. And as it is a lot of work to prepare the proficiency test, if a laboratory don't want to produce results for a designated PT, it is better to inform the ISTA Secretariat that there is no need to send him samples as he will not participate.
Okay. I don't read who is sending that questions, because the question is not that favorable probably. How can we have ISTA accreditation again if we had a few BMPs and we had lost accreditation?
The same answer as for any laboratory which would like to search for ISTA accreditation for the very first time. Just keep continuing, keep participating in the ISTA proficiency test. As Sharon said, study the ISTA rules, train your staff members, check your equipment, check your substrates, so do all the elements of quality management assurance to see where it went wrong and how you can improve it.
Yes, I think a good thing is really to look why it went wrong, why you did have a BMP. Do some testing with other laboratories in your area, check how you are in comparison with them. As Sharon said, maybe ask other laboratories, what could be wrong in my laboratory, and how can I improve? I think local colleagues are probably very important in this area. Final question here. Could you please elaborate scoring or rating process again and how it affects the accreditation laboratory when it gets a low score? I think that is very important, but also I just want to let everybody know you can follow this again on the ISTA YouTube channel and find all the answers on the ISTA YouTube channel. Maybe Didier, you can say a few words again to it, what you did in the beginning as well, and Sharon explained it as well.
So to explain, for most of the analysis, for most of the tests, we use the Z-score. So it's the difference between the mean obtained by the laboratory, the results obtained, the result obtained by the laboratory. So, for example, for purity, we analyze only pure seeds for germination, normal seedlings, for example. And so we compare the result of the laboratory with the mean of accredited laboratories after removal of outliers. And then we divide this difference by the standard deviation to obtain the Z-score. And then we add the 3 Z-score the absolute value of the 3Z score, to have the sum of the 3Z score, and we compare this with threshold grids to determine the rating as A, B, C, or BMP. All this information, detailed information, are in the procedure at the ISTA website. In the page what we do, proficiency, and then standard proficiency, and then you find the procedure.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was a short explanation. If you want to hear the longer version, wait a few days, go to the ISTA YouTube channel, and you can watch this webinar again. I thank you all, my 4 panelists here, Branka, Sharon, Didier, and Jean-Louis. And that was really very helpful. I also thank the rest of the Secretariat, especially Joanna and Karen, who were doing the work in the backside. And I should send you the best regards of our President, Steve Jones, for this excellent presentation today and the discussion. And I think it's a great result which we have here, that a lot of people like to hear about it, and we could give them and answer all their questions besides sending out the information which we wanted to send out. Thank you very much to all of you. It went a little bit longer than an hour, but not much. I hope to see you again also in person at one of the next ISTA meetings. And I wish you all the best, a good Christmas time, good holiday season, wherever you are, whatever you are celebrating at this time of the year, and get ready for the new year and for new challenges in the upcoming year. Thank you very much to all of you, and take care, and goodbye to all of you.
Bye, thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye.